Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to our first call of 2025, Blockchain Banter Trading Crypto. I'm Jen. I'm here with Keith Allen, TA and algo trader, order book analyst, and co-founder of Material Indicators, along with Dr. Mark Richardson, project lead at Banter and Carbon DeFi. It's been a few weeks since we've been able to get together, you guys. So happy holidays, happy new year to all of our viewers as well. I hope everybody's off to a good start for the new year. I know that Bitcoin is. That was in my announcement. We are back over 100,000. And
not anymore.
Not anymore? What happened? I just looked maybe in 2 hours before our call. What happened?
Well, in the last 2 minutes. It's dumping.
Is it really?
Yeah, okay, I actually posted something a little while ago. We're seeing some sell pressure, and not surprised.
So this is really, I mean, we take a look at the order book, and this is really where that comes into play, right? Like we kind of can eliminate a lot of that guessing of what is Bitcoin going to do next by looking at the order book.
Yeah.
Keith, that is something that you have kind of brought for us with Material Indicators, and where that liquidity is actually stacked. You know, maybe we can take a look at that. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to discuss. Something, like I said, it's been a few weeks, which, by the way.
Uh-oh, here comes the Post-its, Mark.
It was the end of 2024, and Crypto Corio, who unfortunately wasn't able to continue the call with us.
It was the end of 2023.
2023. I'm so sorry. Yes, we said, where is Bitcoin going to be at the start of 2025? Corio and Caesar, who was on that call with us, said 80 to 90K. Keith, you said 75 to 85K. And Mark, you said 60 to 70K. And your friend Keith said 10 to 20K.
I really like Corio and miss him.
I miss Corio. I do. I miss him. If he's able to come back, I know that he would like to. So we'll see about that. But Corio and Caesar were our closest without going over that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Should we do a new one for 2026? I'm going to say yes.
What was your prediction?
I didn't make one.
What kind of bullshit is that?
I know. I actually said like 100,000.
What's that?
I said 100. So technically I'm the winner.
Right.
And it's not rigged. Okay, 2026. Let's do it really quickly. Also, if any of our viewers want to play into this and give their best prediction for 2026, please write in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking it's going to be, because I'm making my new Post-it here.
Okay, and, so are we going to predict 2026 where it is at the end of 2025, or where the cycle top is?
Well,
because those could be two different things.
Which were you feeling more confident in? Or
I don't feel confident in either. I mean, like, I'll be honest, and I know I said this before, but like predicting long term like that for me is just like an axe wielding stab in the dark. Because
let's go cycle top first.
Okay. This is.
You don't have to guess when. What do we think it's going to be at? You can guess when too if you want to.
Can I give a range?
Of course you can.
I'm going to say my range is somewhere on the spectrum between, it's a big range, 122 and 155.
Wow.
That's a big range.
Definitely a big range.
But I will show you the technical reasons why I have those as targets when we get into this. But that's my range.
And Mark will show you how to create a range order on Carbon DeFi to cover all of 122 to 155.
Right.
Okay, Mark.
I know that's a bullshit prediction, but that's.
You set them up perfectly for it, though.
There you
go. Define cycle top.
What do you mean? Like cycle top.
like
before the next, the highest that it gets before the next major bear market.
Right.
Yeah, I think it could go a little higher than that.
There's lots of predictions that go into.
Is Mark being a little bit more like bullish, optimistic than?
Okay. I wouldn't call it optimism.
It's a new year.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if we get within a hair of touching 200K.
Really? So what do you want to say? 170 to 2?
It wouldn't surprise me either, but I just have a hard time making those predictions of like astronomical numbers. This is why I trade.
Right.
That's why I trade ranges and I trade what's in front of me. Right. Like I think Ben Cowan. I think I saw something from him the other day that was like 288, something like that. Yeah, like major.
Yeah,
and anything's possible, but I'm going to stick to the technicals on the chart, and those are my next two targets in my range for profit taking, and I will determine whether I close trades at that point, depending on what the price action is at that point and what else is influencing the market.
Right. So Mark, do you want to say, like, we're looking at like a $30,000 range? You want to say 170 to 2, something like that?
I can go a little tighter. I'm going to say, somewhere between, I think 180 is when we're starting to get like extremely risk on. So I'll say between 180 and 200. I would be surprised if we get a lot.
You get a $30,000 range. Okay, sure. White Paladin says 300.
300 is pretty optimistic, but he's not the first person to have suggested that. So.
Okay, well, I am writing down your prediction here.
Right,
you are
I think Robert Kiyosaki said 350, and I trust that guy as far as I can throw him.
I think let's say give me a little north. What's my range? 30K.
30K.
So we'll say So let's go from we'll go north and south. So we'll go from 180, 185 up to 215, somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay. Okay. We're going to do that.
Look at me, the conservative guy now.
I know. I know.
I mean,
but this is why you're still in the game. Not that White Paladin's not that some aren't, right? But
this is so arbitrary for me, but actually the numbers are not arbitrary, and I'll show you why they're not when we climb into charts if you want me to. But
yeah, I do.
Okay, well, and
I'm sure our viewers do too. While you do that, bring up your screen, and Mark, please make sure if there's anything that's like specific that you want to go over, also that you put your share your screen there so I can bring it up as well when Keith is done. To anybody who's still watching, even though I put my post-it away, it's right here next to me. So if you have your best guess for the cycle top and you want to, throw your comment in there, please do. Okay.
It's a shame that Corio's not still with us, because he would have won, of course, the cash prize of $100,000 for getting the closest guess.
Our viewers are going to think that there is a $100,000 prize.
Right. You guys are putting that up, right?
Jen's putting it up personally.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm going to send him a DM though and see what he says. I'll keep you guys updated. I noticed you posted something yesterday. We had spoken previously about this cup and handle. You're still obviously looking at this. I can see it there.
I'm looking at my chart now on screen, and I think I need a New Year's resolution that says less tabs in 2025.
I thought I had a lot. I didn't even notice that until you had pointed it out. But yeah, that's
put the tabs on the left rather than the top. They are a lot more manageable that way.
Put the tabs on the left. Okay. I'll deal with that another time. So yes, I am still looking at the cup and handle because this pattern is still playing out and still valid as far as I'm concerned. This, this handle is a bit arbitrary, right? Like whether this happens just like this or not. I just, my target for this is, and we've discussed this before, is the measured move from the rim of the cup down to the low. That was a 77% move. So I take the same 77%, because we're on log scale, I take the same 77%. So if this was on linear, not on log scale, I would just do it as a line. But on log scale, we'll do it as a percentile move. And that gets me to that 122.5K target. So what's interesting, and we had talked about this before, I'll get this out of the way, is we also have this lifetime channel. And let me zoom out a little bit so you can get some perspective on that. We have this lifetime channel, which obviously Bitcoin has fallen out of during the last bear market, and has attempted to get back in once, but has failed that and hasn't made it back into that channel yet. So we may or may not ever return to that channel. I think it remains the glass ceiling on price discovery until we do break back in. So a lot of things could happen between now and whenever we get to the cycle top. And so timing also has a lot to do with where my targets were, right? And so if we shot up there after Inauguration Day, and I do think that there is some merit to the Trump pump, right? There's no denying it. Yesterday we saw that rally, and that rally, maybe not so coincidentally, was aligned with yesterday's certification of the votes. So that obviously happened uncontested. But where did we top out? Well, is it a surprise that we topped out yesterday right here at this fib extension? 1.618 is exactly where price topped out yesterday, and we've of course seen price erode since then. Not surprising. We have also, where's my other moving averages? Where do they all go to? We have a death cross on between the 21 and the 50-day moving averages. Those are, in the grand scheme of things, shorter term. They may or may not end up leading to a bigger dip. Historically, death crosses do. However, death crosses between these two particular moving averages at times don't equate to much, right? It's a lagging indicator. So that's, part of it. Maybe the worst of it has already played out, but there is some history on this. And if we look through history, we can see prior death crosses between those two moving averages where other moving averages aren't involved, right? So if you look up here, this was where the bear market began back in 2021. It death crossed there, but it came through all the other moving averages, right? That was a nasty one. But in situations like this, and this was a brief overlap, or a brief crossing, if you will, and then a quick rally out, really a V-shaped recovery out of this dump here. Too early to tell how this one's gonna play out. But here's another one, right? It was a short-lived death cross, and of course, once they unwind, we see massive price appreciation. So we could get that here. Back to my targets though. And as we're watching this right now, by the way, I would say that if price falls below this green 21-day moving average, then that obviously opens the door for a deeper correction.
What's that 21-day moving average at?
At the moment, it's
about.
It is at 96,700 ish, and that's a simple moving average as opposed to some of the other moving averages that people like to use. So my other target here really just goes to these fib extensions, and it's relative to the fib extensions and the and this lifetime channel, right? So if we bump up against this lifetime channel and and get rejected, then maybe we don't hit these other ranges until later, right? Likewise, if we cross this 2.618 fib, which is where my 155 target came in, that obviously opens the door to the next range and the next range and so on and so forth. So the 4.618 takes us up to 263,000. That's certainly, I don't rule anything out, but obviously this is a lower probability, in my opinion, than these, which seem quite realistic in my mind. And again, if we make it back, if Bitcoin can make it back into this lifetime channel, that's really where we open the door to price discovery. That's where we get into those Michael Saylor kind of numbers, potential anyways, to climb into, 7 or potentially over time, and I mean decades of time, 8-figure Bitcoin. So, again, these are my near range targets here. The measured move off of the cup and handle takes us to 122.5K ish. And I'm not convinced, just based on really the fundamentals for crypto at the moment, and Bitcoin specifically, that we obviously still have great ETF demand, that we have a crypto friendly administration coming in. We expect to see the SEC kind of or at least get focused here on the regulatory environment, which I don't know about you, but since day one in this market, I've been waiting for some regulatory clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things are on the table for me.
Okay. So even though it appears that these changes are being made, until they actually are?
Until they actually are, we're speculating, right? And same thing goes for, there's talk of a crypto reserve for the US, and other nations are obviously having the same discussion. We know that obviously El Salvador has done that. We know that Brazil and China and Russia, are all embracing crypto. But how does that materialize? If it does indeed materialize, number one, these things require an act of Congress. Okay. And Trump obviously has a very friendly Congress at this stage. And there is interest in embracing crypto. How that develops remains to be seen, right? So Senator Loomis, yet. Right. Senator Loomis has a proposal and a bill for the U.S. to sell gold reserves and buy 1 million Bitcoin over time, like over the next 10 years or so, something like that. That is a very aggressive approach that obviously will require buying Bitcoin and could move price. As I understand it, Trump's approach, or at least his thought process, for whatever that's worth, is to simply not sell any of the seized Bitcoin, and likely to seize more.
How much do they have currently? Out of curiosity, do we know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know either. Mark, what are your thoughts on this? I know you don't necessarily, want to speak too much.
One of those approaches will move the market, and the other one won't.
Right. How has gold been performing, by the way? Sometimes we'll take a look at that kind of in comparison. I mean, it hasn't been performing nearly as well as Bitcoin has over the last year.
No, it has not.
Mm-mm.
And I haven't been looking at it.
Gold's done. I mean, gold is having a moment.
It's probably having a moment right now as Bitcoin is dropping.
No, I mean, gold and Bitcoin are sort of teetering on the moving averages together. But for an asset that is worth 5% of all of the world's value, a 50% rally, is quite significant. And so, like, measuring it from the market bottom, which was about $1,600 an ounce, to the recent top, was actually a 72% rally. So it is fairly significant. Gold is doing really well. And that should not be too surprising. We've seen a very sharp uptick in the rate of accumulation of gold by a lot of the world's governments, in particular China, which is also sort of coinciding with the, some of the threats of recession and market turndown and other things. So it's all part of the same narrative. But yes, some of the world's governments, or actually a lot of the world's governments, have been accumulating gold for the last couple of years. And the rate at which they are accumulating it has been accelerating, at least the last time I checked. My information is slightly out of date. I haven't really been paying attention to gold since sort of September or October. But
All
the
right, I was
last
just
time I
kind of more
checked,
curious. Yeah.
but the last time I checked, gold is is in the middle of a rally, and it's kind of overdue in a way. Gold, the peak of the gold market, before this rally was in July of 2020, I think, and then before that was in September of 2011. So gold has actually put in this enormous cup and handle pattern, very, very similar to the one that Bitcoin is putting in. Let me share my screen. I'll show you what that looks like.
Okay. Let me, Keith's got his Bitcoin ETF up really fast. While you share your screen and pull it up there, let's look at the ETF flows.
Just real quickly, I'm noticing that yesterday was another massive day of inflows, 978 million. This is, I think, I was looking at what had happened on Friday, and I think this was like one of the top 5 days of inflows. So that now makes this 978 million top 4 or 5 inflows. And interestingly, BlackRock is not the one leading the charge here. Fidelity is.
Looks like the last 2 days.
Yeah, have been massive.
Yeah. So this could be, how much do we think the ETF actually affects the actual price of Bitcoin though?
I think it does. I think it does in a sense that,
froze. Okay,
it's not, I think that it influences the broader sentiment of the market more so than just the value that the volume from those ETFs pushes. Like, I don't think that the volume is massive compared to the daily Bitcoin volume, right? And Mark, maybe you can have a look at that just in terms of like how much Bitcoin volume and net there is versus how much of it is, we're looking at just shy of $1 billion worth yesterday.
Mark.
And the same thing on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 huge days.
Where do you get your volume statistics from at the moment?
Well, just looking at the Bitcoin chart, which is denominated in Bitcoin, so you got to do the math on that. But yesterday, and I'm not looking on across exchanges either, right? I'm just looking at one exchange. So you've got to look at an aggregate. I wonder if the index for Bitcoin shows an aggregated volume. I'm not sure what that volume looks like. Let's see. That shows 20,000 Bitcoin yesterday. What does Coinbase show? Like, what's the split?
So for those that aren't, or maybe new to trading, why does volume matter so much?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Some people will claim that volume doesn't matter at all. And in some sense, I'm in their camp. And this is something I've pointed out on previous calls, that I've seen the price of things move on zero volume. You know, like it is in a way a bit of a fuss to claim that you know, the way that price moves is contingent on buying and selling. That's only like a small part of the story. The buying and selling is what actually influences the people who are in charge of the price to set their prices the way that they do. But it's not deterministic. So you can have an enormous amount of volume and the price do nothing, and a very, very small amount of volume and have the price move quite dramatically. It really has to do with how the prices are being marked out and how derivative markets and things are influencing the way that people are setting their prices. Having said that, big volumes give you a lot more confidence in where the price is at. So if you see, you know, a price of Bitcoin at 100K and a very, very large amount of trading volume around that number, that should give you a high level of confidence that that if you wanted to buy Bitcoin at that price or sell Bitcoin at that price, that you should be able to do so in relatively large quantities. Whereas if the price of Bitcoin was at, let's say, 500,000, but only with a very, very small volume there, you might then look at that price with skepticism, that if you wanted to buy or sell Bitcoin at that price, that you wouldn't be able to do so. So it's really a confidence metric, at least for me, that's how I look at it, is that tells you how liquid the market is at a particular price point, not necessarily whether or not the price is going to remain stable there or whatever.
So turns out the index does not show aggregate volume, and coin market cap has you know, looks like it's aggregating, but I'm not sure if this is in total. Maybe you know, if one of our listeners has some insight to that, but coin market cap is showing 50 billion yesterday, and that's relative to less than 1 billion out of those ETFs, right? So that's fractional. But I think the sentiment that is created by that demand is something that has a ripple effect through the market. I think that influences the market.
That makes complete sense. Okay, so this all just happened since the last time I looked at the chart. Shows how quickly things can move, right?
Yeah. And in terms of those dumps, and I want to get to Mark here, but in terms of the dumps that we identified with the CVD and fire charts, we saw this coming, right? So, you know, right here you can see where all classes began selling, and we saw this coming when we were, you know, well above the 100K, when we were around 101K. And so with very thin liquidity in place here, it was pretty eminent that price was going to fall through. And
where was the liquidity? Or was it just not there?
I mean, there was like, and I'm looking just on Binance here on the USDT pair, but there was less than $5 million at 100K, you know,
oh wow,
attempting to hold it up. And then it looks like some came in, another, you know, 6 million came in. So maybe it was 10 million at that point. But still that's nothing, right, to hold price up. So
when do you feel confident? What sort of liquidity do you feel confident in with the price being held up?
You know, it really depends on what's influencing the market, because same thing goes in both directions, right? There's times when we could see 100 million get eaten, right? And that's really based on sentiment. But it's rare to see
something like $10 million.
To not see price bounce from you know, double digit liquidity, and especially when it's stacked. And at the moment you can see we're not really, I'll zoom out and you can see we're not really stacked too deep here. In fact, there's a bit of a free fall. If we fall through this level here,
is that down to 90?
With down to the, you know, I would say it would most likely scenario would be to go back and retest this 91.5 range. And then, you know, we've had quite a few support tests there. If you know, well, the first test is going to be these moving averages, right? And if we fall through these moving averages, then we go back and retest this. And if we fall through the top of this, then the lower end of that range at 86.5 comes into play. And you know, if you fall through that, you look at progressive levels down below.
And the liquidity can move, right? So this is, you want to keep an eye on this too. It's not like you know, all this, just because there's this free fall now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way, but
it can and it does. And
Mhm.
I would say, let me see if I can share this with you guys.
I have a question too, Keith. Earlier you mentioned 96.7, I believe it was, or 97.6. Which one was it? I don't know if you recall. 96.7. What does the liquidity look like at that point? That was one of those key levels that you were looking at, that you wouldn't want to see us, well, not necessarily wouldn't want to see us break through, but that you were keeping an eye on as one of your markers.
What did you say? 90?
It was 96.7 or 97.6. It was one of the moving averages that you were looking at.
Oh, okay. So yes, right. So we were looking at the 21-day moving average, and that sits at, what did we say, 97 and change? Let's see. That's at 96 700-ish.
96.7.
And at the moment, we have not a great deal there, right? We have some coming in here at 98, but that's only $6 million, right? So
yeah, so
not a lot here.
I mean, even less than what we were saying wasn't going to hold up to 100,000.
And more importantly, the selling is still happening across the board, right?
Which class started selling first? Is that an indicator that you ever look at?
What's that?
Which class started selling first, or did they all just kind of?
It was kind of a simultaneous deal. I mean, yellow has been the smaller order class has been, looked like it started TWAPing out, and then dumped. But I don't pay a tremendous amount of attention to that one unless they're TWAPing in mass over time. But you can see that, purple is the one that I follow the most, and obviously brown is the largest. So they have some impact, of course. But they just don't do the same volume that purple does. So purple is who I watch the most, for sure.
Well, and you mentioned it before too, that even the brown class, like the whale class, will break up their orders and things too. You know what I mean? So it's
into smaller orders. So in this case, brown dumped. There's only one and a quarter million, and purple sold
5, 8.
20.
What am I looking at?
Closer to 20. So you see the $100,000 to $1 million orders.
Yeah.
At the peak, it was net negative 13, and then went to net negative 37. So
yeah,
quite, right. So just ballparking that, but I expect. We've said this since long before the election. If Trump wins, which of course he did, we expected a pump, followed by a dump, followed by consolidation, and then price returning to its normal trajectory, whatever that is.
To its normal trajectory.
Price returning to its normal trajectory, depending on what, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. And I think that we're still going to see this volatility relative to the so-called Trump pump through Inauguration Day. Does Inauguration Day become a sell the news event, and then we let things settle down and see what he actually implements to get price moving? Does he do a day one across the board tariff that triggers a sell-off and the correction that we've been waiting for? All of this remains to be seen.
Mark, are you expecting a correction as well? We'd spoken about this in previous calls, and I don't recall. And I'm curious too, where you guys see that actual correction happening. I know that we were initially waiting for it at like 14,000, right? That didn't actually happen, but we did see a correction, especially since you went to that line chart, Keith. You were showing us the 1 week, right? But where would you see that happening now? Or is that just kind of a we're waiting to see, we've got these specific sort of prices in mind?
I think historically we have seen 20 to 50 or more % corrections in each bull market. And I see no reason why this one should be any different. The what I do like, and one of the things that I'm bullish on is how early we are in this cycle, right? Relative to the other cycles, there seems to be time, and there have been some deep corrections in every bull cycle, right? This was 56% from the mid-cycle top back in 2021, and so what do those look like? We've yet to see a 20% correction from this top. And what that looks like from here to me is, even where we've tested so far has only been 15%. If we take it down to the bottom of that channel, we're in 20% range. And I think that satisfies a lot of technicians. The 100-day.
Noticing as well that there's actually, I know that there's somewhat of a like religious or supernatural component to the CME gap, but there is a CME gap between
there is a CME gap
and 80.
And this is why I have this is why I have some conviction on this 76K target down here. It's a little.
Is that the price you just said, Mark? I missed it.
Yeah, well, I was just pointing out that like a 20% correction from here would, 21.6-ish correction from here would close the CME gap. We know that historically,
no, it would not. The gap is at down to 77,900.
That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at 77,500. Well, okay. And by the way, I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin on I'm looking at CME
from here may do that, but that wouldn't be 20% from the all-time high.
Right. Yeah. 20% from here is what I mean. 20% from here, 21-ish from here would close the CME gap. And that would also coincide with, let me work out which average this one is, that there is a fast-moving average there, which is it's the SMA. It's the 20 or 21 SMA. I usually do 20s, not 21s. I know that's
so. Is that on the weekly?
Yeah, that's on the weekly. And so like a 21% correction from here would not be surprising or catastrophic, I think. Close to the CMA gap, and we could rebound from there. But yeah, I am expecting a correction. I can show you a couple.
That would be a 27% correction from the high, to close that gap and bounce from the 21 week moving average, and that would be beautiful, in my opinion. I mean, that's certainly in the realm of possibilities. I mean, you could get at this stage, you could get from here, and nothing says that the correction has to come from this high, right? It could come from 120, it could come from 150. Who knows where it's coming from? But from where we sit right now, we could get a 47, almost a 50% correction, and still not break the trend. Right? Here's the trend line. We could go almost 50% and not break the trend.
Right.
Okay. Well, at least we have a general idea, right? Anybody wants to set those bids?
I did.
What's that?
I did.
You did?
I do. I do have bids there, and one of the reasons I have bids there is where I'm trading. I'm getting it's not a lot of yield, but I'm getting some yield on my stable coins, even if I'm not staking them, even if they're resting on limit orders that haven't been filled. So I'm still making 4.5% on that coin while it's waiting to get filled. And I don't want to, if we get that nasty wick, I don't want to miss it.
No, I think this is the thing about placing orders. And we talk about this all the time. I'm writing a new blog on this, like the advantages of actually placing orders versus just reactively making moves, right? Mark, what were you going to say before we went into that? I apologize.
When are you talking about? Just a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out as well that if people do trade the RSI, that this recent rally, relatively recent rally on the weekly, which I pointed out on our previous call, and I just want to point out that it remains true. So the rally from early September up until now has failed to produce a higher high on the RSI compared to the high that we made back in March of what is now last year. And so that is technically a divergent pattern, suggesting that there isn't a lot of strength behind this most recent rally. And so that drawback could come sooner rather than later. But the MACD disagrees. The MACD thinks that this is a relatively strong trend, so we'll have to wait and see. This is when you start to get into the minutia of Ichimoku and other momentum indicators and things like that. But there's depending on which tools you are using, there is some disagreement as to whether or not this push up to the 100K level is convincing or not.
I wanted to ask about alts. Originally I was thinking how are the alts doing with Bitcoin's recent rally, but I'm curious also how they're reacting now, seeing Bitcoin not dumping, right? But it's kind of dumping a little bit. What are the alts doing? And are there any specific alts that you guys, I know that we had spoken about a few in the past that Keith, you were looking at, Mark, you were looking at also. Are they still kind of on your radar? And if so, maybe you wouldn't mind sharing that a little bit. Keith, you spoke about sentiment earlier, right? What is your general sentiment towards the alts?
Well, this is not my area of expertise. It's not where I specialize, but I do play with a few because of the upside potential. But we were waiting for an alt season, and again, this is not my area of expertise, but I've been trying to study this and learn more. And one of the things that I've been watching very closely is Bitcoin dominance, which you remember election day is really the catalyst that got things got price moving, and we saw a massive depreciation in Bitcoin dominance as alts began to soar. And then at the beginning of early December, we saw that level off, and Bitcoin dominance has not been going down without a fight, right? It did reject from the trend line, came back down, and here in the past couple of days, we're seeing some resilience once again. So I'm really thinking that we need to see Bitcoin dominance come down closer to this 50% line to really see a true alt season. I don't know with the institutional demand, with all the other things and the speculation on how the regulatory environment is going to become more crypto friendly. I don't know if Bitcoin dominance will fall as low as it previously has, right? Maybe expecting a 50%, a sub 50% Bitcoin dominance may not be realistic anymore. I just don't know. But I do know this: as long as it continues to fight for strength here, as it's doing right now, that alts aren't going to do the astronomical numbers, or at least in mass, that a lot of people are hoping for. Now, in terms of what the broader market is doing on alts, I can take a look at alt correlations here.
Mark, do you have any thoughts on that Bitcoin dominance while Keith is pulling that up?
I don't really pay attention or care about Bitcoin dominance. I think that it strikes me as a relatively artificial way to evaluate things. Like, you don't hear anyone talk about gold dominance, for example, or silver dominance when evaluating other precious metals. We don't talk about San Francisco dominance when it comes to evaluating real estate options in the world or anything like that. It's a thing that has come up and people pay attention to because it makes sense, I think, early on in cryptocurrency to evaluate Bitcoin versus everything else. And certainly, people like Mike Saylor feel that there should only be one cryptocurrency, and maybe that kind of cultural paradigm has kind of bled through and helped to galvanize that kind of attitude. But I think that it's interesting. I do look at it from time to time, but I don't use it as a as a signal in and of itself, because I don't put much stock in the idea.
I think it's difficult to use any one of these as the sole signal in and of itself. Right? I mean, you were just
I don't
saying you
think
were
you can
looking
use
at,
anything as a sole signal.
right?
I don't. Yeah, I don't have enough. I mean, even in our own signals, I don't use anything by itself. I use every indicator, every data point that I look at. I use really as part of my broader analysis, my broader narrative to help me, literally build the narrative that I'm trading on and build my conviction. In terms of what the broader alt market is doing at the moment, this chart here shows us returns and drawdowns. Okay, so
I don't think we've looked at this one yet, Keith.
Pardon me?
I don't think we've looked at this one, at least not for a good while. This is another one of the hidden features of
it's top
material
secret.
indicator.
It's top secret. In fact, don't even look at it.
Well, our 1,000 viewers know
Right.
now. So secret's out. Sorry.
The secret's out. This is one of the metrics in the MI dashboard. And this shows us our 14-day rolling returns in terms of profits and drawdowns, right? And so you can see how just a few weeks ago, we were really seeing the market get hammered, right? These were massive corrections, 50, 60, 40% corrections, right? And it was happening en masse, right? This was kind of a capitulation event. And we're seeing things change from here at this point, right? And so this is another way to measure it here. Down here, let's first go to positive returns. And this is basically telling us that about 58% of the market, 56% of the market of coins are in, well, at least until about 20 minutes ago, we're in positive territory over the past 14 days. And the red line shows us coins that had drawdown less than 10% drawdown. And so that number is dropping, which means more coins are going into bigger drawdowns at the moment as we speak, right? And so this volatility obviously creates opportunity for traders in both directions, but it's pretty interesting to watch, in my opinion. And you can zoom in and you can pick out specific coins and see what might be an outlier. For example, let's see, what's this one right here? Got to get a little tighter so I can. What is green? 34% on move, right? Moving means it's moving down, right? 34% drawdown over the past 14 days. So maybe it's getting near a bottom. Look, what's this bright yellow one up here? 45%. PHA, which is, I have no idea what that is. That sounds like shitcoin spelled with a PH. 45% down over the past couple of weeks, and maybe that helps you find coins that are capitulating and going to bottoms. On the other hand, it could be coins that are going to zero.
Good for those that are like, I don't care what I'm trading, because a lot of traders don't, right?
A lot of traders don't, and they're just looking for setups. So if you're looking for setups, you look for the ones that are bottoming out or having massive dumps and looking to see where they could find footing. So I mean, to do that, you'd pick your coin, and then you'd go to a candle chart, and you do some technical analysis and see what the setup looks like, and then you go to fire charts and you see what the liquidity looks like, and you see if there's buying happening on the CVD, and then you decide whether it's time to push buttons or not.
Mark, is this gold that you have pulled up here? Keith, I just realized the time. I'm gonna pull Mark's chart up here. Thank you for going over this with us, by the way. Anytime you want to share secrets and,
do it. And it does look like we are getting a bounce here above the 21-day moving average, at least for the moment.
What are we at currently? 98?
98.
Okay. Well, we know to keep an eye on that. I don't remember now. 96.7, 97.6. It's within that. that I remember now.
96.7.
96.7. Thank you. Okay, Mark, let me bring you up here. You're looking at Litecoin. Okay, so you shifted to when we were talking about the alts.
Yeah, you asked about alts, and so
I like
a couple
Litecoin.
of yeah,
do like
a
Litecoin.
couple of alts that I think are usually worth paying attention to, just to get an idea of what the market is thinking. Litecoin is not looking so bad. This is the monthly chart, by the way. And this is, there's a W pattern that's been forming here. The reconciliation in the MACD is looking pretty good. You can see that actually we're about to break above the midline for the first time in, wow, the death crosses all the way back in 2022. So this has been, a 2 to 3 year sort of recovery period for Litecoin, but the setup isn't looking too bad. It wouldn't surprise me if we see Litecoin rally. From here, I've got no idea how high, but the all-time highs aren't too far from here, like something like a 4x, something like that, which for the altcoin markets isn't too outlandish. For XRP, I think we've already seen, a relatively large.
Is that 270 something? What is that at now? 232?
Yeah, so you remember again, 232, yeah. So, and you can go back to previous calls that we've had when we've been speaking about altcoins, but we have previously pointed out that XRP was looking like it was set up the same way. And so again, just pointing out those features that I just referred to on Litecoin, you can see that on the MACD, there was a long recovery period. MACD was looking very good, and then just exploded to the upside. And this is relatively recent, right? This only began back in November. But that's an enormous monthly candle. Right?
There was news associated with that, though, wasn't there? I mean, that was.
Well, I mean,
there was an actual catalyst for that.
I mean, maybe, there's always a catalyst for something, but that's because, people find faces in the clouds, This is
I mean, I think this one had to do with someone from Ripple and the Trump administration.
I doubt it. I mean, it might have. I mean, Ripple's also been making huge headway defeating their case against the SEC, which, although has been extremely expensive for them, they have, I think, done a fairly good job of defending themselves. But yeah, the point is that we were talking about it before any of those catalysts came to fruition. And then after it happens, people find, justification for it. So whether or not that catalyst was required remains, something that we can only speculate about. But the point is that, at least XRP, which I think is a fairly, mainstream altcoin, has made this kind of, 350% breakout,
and that was an all-time high, right? So it's an all-time high territory. And you mentioned that they've done a good job of defending themselves. I don't think anything has helped them. I don't think their lawyers have helped them as much as Gary Gensler announcing his resignation.
Yeah, I agree to that.
And that's probably a big part. That's probably a big part of that pump. I know that there's noise of a Ripple-based stablecoin, Ripple-backed stablecoin. I don't know how that may come into play relative to the recent Euro ban on USDT. But that may be giving Ripple a little bit of a tailwind, XRP a bit of a tailwind.
I forgot about that one too. We didn't see a lot of depegging from USDT, did we? When that happened, that was what, December 30th, I think, was the date. And I was following that, and then I guess nothing really came of it.
Well,
right?
you have a somebody related to XRP. I mean, not XRP, but related to USDT, headed for the Trump administration. So I don't think that we're going to see the same kind of ban in the US that Europe had, and you know, how much volume is coming out of Europe relative to the entire market. Obviously, it's a significant part of the world, world's trading population, but I don't think it's, it's nowhere near what Asia, the impact Asia has, for example. If that was an
Right.
Asian ban on USDT, that would probably carry a lot, have a lot more impact. We have seen a little bit of erosion on USDT dominance, but not as much as I expected. And yesterday we had a conversation in our Telegram group about the ban, and about how the U.S. may respond to it, and the fact that we have a potential cabinet member coming in that is related to that project probably means it's pretty safe.
Yeah. We're at the top of the hour, you guys. I just looked up and I see it is 9 a.m. my time.
That happened fast.
That did happen fast. It always happens fast. Anything else that you guys wanted to quick bring attention to, or something that you may be looking out for, or something that, you want to share with our viewers before we call it?
My long-term outlook is still unchanged. I know there's been a lot of noise and a lot of rumbling on the market, on social media that the cycle top is in, and hey, maybe it is, but I haven't seen anything to validate that yet. Right?
It's so funny. You see that the cycle top is in, and then you see calls for 380.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So I think you have to, as I always say, don't believe the hype. Don't buy into what the so-called, gurus are saying. Look at the charts, look at the data, make your own decisions. For me, the invalidator is, losing all of these moving averages and breaking through that trend line, which, is way down there at the moment. The trend is at 56K. So yeah. I don't think we're going there anytime soon. But if we got that black swan that took us down there, if that level holds, and I'm not saying that I want to take a ride down to 56K.
But your bids are set.
I would de-risk a bit if we went down there. But my dollar cost average price point is still below that. So I'm still in profit either way, but I don't want to give everything back. So I would scale back my higher entries and take profit on those if we started breaking down to that level. But I think that CME gap, really, or if we maybe stretch a little bit lower to that 76K consolidation, if we get that deep correction from this range, I think those levels will hold.
Yeah. Mark, what about yourself? Any final thoughts?
I guess maybe just to add to what Keith was saying, just be careful where you get your information from. Twitter is not a reliable source of information.
That's not what Elon Musk says.
Yes. Well, I rest my case.
I'm biting my tongue here. At least not with crypto Twitter.
Yeah. Just make sure that you're, if you are going to make a trade or invest, that you're doing so with information that you're comfortable wielding, and not based on the stuff that people are throwing around. Your favorite influencer, exactly.
Okay, well, Mark, I'm also going to add my final thought is we're talking about placing orders and things. I know that Keith is mostly on centralized exchanges. We didn't really talk about carbon at all. We had looked at material indicators and a lot of the information that Keith shares with us. But for anybody who's looking at, some of those key areas that we were looking at just now and wants to place their orders, I recommend looking at Carbon DeFi to do so if you are an on-chain trader. Whether it's the buys or the sells and the ranges like we had spoken about, not just the limit orders at a single specific price. So that's carbondefi.xyz. Keith, it's MIALGOS. Tell me your website once more. Tell all of our viewers your website once more.
Oh, the website is materialindicators.com.
I'm looking at your Twitter is what I'm doing with your me algos.
the Twitter is MI_algos.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Well, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and for all the comments and the hellos. We will see you next week. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to think about what they want their cycle tops, guesses to be, I'm taking those. Awesome.
Yeah, there will be. Jen's going to have post-its, pink post-its all over that back wall.
I do. I know. I was saying I can't believe they lasted a year, though. I'm proud of my post-its.
Congratulations. You've got good glue over there in Arizona.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you again to all the viewers. We'll see you all next week.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.